Hello, my name is Marc Sommerfeld, and today we're going to build this door right here. It's a brand new door that we have. We're going to offer. It's a mitered raised panel door. And to do that, we're going to use our tongue and groove cabinet making, the Pro set. When the Pro set is our regular tongue and groove set, but it also features this long molding bit. Okay? It used to be that when you make a door like this, you'd have to go out and buy some expensive molding like this. But with that long bit, we're going to create our own molding. Okay? Now, to do that, this is probably the longest bit made, longest router bit made. And what you want to do when you set that bit is you want to set the bit right there. There's a little curve, little radius right here on the bottom. Okay? You want to set that so it's approximately flush with the table. So you can see we've already got it set right there. Okay. We're going to snug that up now with our wrench, and we're ready to go. Now, most people with their, if you don't have our router table, I think our router table is about the only one that's going to work with this, but our router table is made especially tall. We made it especially for this bit. And what we're doing here, you can see, what we did is we even mortised out a little bit on the fence right there, so this bit is going to work with this fence. So our fence is going to work perfectly. Now, if you don't have a fence like ours, what you might have to do is put a sacrifice fence on the front. Just get a big chunk of wood like this and get it a little bit taller, and then cut out your opening in that chunk of wood and have that fastened to your fence. It's called a sacrifice fence, and you can get by there. Okay. Well, our fence is going to come over here and drop into our pivot point. And you can see how it pivots. Now, when we're cutting, what we're going to do first is we're going to take our stiles and rails here to make this door. Okay, here's our two stiles and here's our two rails. And they're going to be eventually cut with miters in them. When you cut these, if I want this door to be 20 inches long, we're going to cut it a lot extra, about 28 inches. Cut it 4 or 5 inches extra long. So when you cut it, you can always come in there and cut those 45s. Okay, so we got our pieces cut to the right length. And on the width of this, when you're making a mitered raised panel door, you want to at least make it, the minimum is 3 inches wide. Okay, 3 inches. And you can probably go up to about 3 1/4, 3 1/2. I wouldn't go much wider than that. But it has to be at least 3 inches to encompass this. All right. Now, when we're cutting this cut, we don't want that bit making the full cut. So I'm going to push it way up here, and we'll just take a baby cut to start with. And we're going to take and pivot that fence back to the bearing, and it might take 2 or 3 passes. Make 3 passes to make it nice and easy for yourself. And when you're running that bit, the first 2 or 3 passes, run it around medium speed, 2 or 3 on your router. When you get to the final cut and you're taking not much off, then you can turn the speed of the router up just a little bit to get a smoother cut. Now, before we make this cut, a lot of guys would do this. When they're cutting something like this, they'll come into here and they'll set up a series of feather boards to hold that board against the fence, and a bunch of feather boards maybe locking into here, pushing down. You can if you want. Well, what we did, we make it a simple push block. What we have to do is push that board in, push it down, and push it forward. Okay, we've got a block of wood right here, a big block of wood. That board is going to go against here, and it's going to push the fence towards the fence. This board, you can see we put on top, and that's going to press down. And we purposely made this here short enough so that we can get pressure going down. The last piece on the back now, you can see that backer on the back, that is going to push forward. So what we're doing with this, with these 3 pieces of wood, we're pushing down, pushing in, and pushing forward, and it makes for a very safe cut, you see, when we're cutting through there. Okay? All right. So we've got a small cut there. We're going to put our router into work. Okay, you can see we've made that final cut there now, and we're just taking off just a little bit. Now we're going to move that fence back and make a little bit bigger cut each time. Okay, we're going to move it back about right. Let's take it about right there. Okay, now we're going to run all 4 boards through again. We're starting to make that hump in the middle there. We're making a little bit. Now we're going to probably take 2 more passes for us to do. We'll probably take 2 more passes to get a nice smooth cut. The less cuts you take, the less you take each time, the smoother the cut's going to be. So we'll come in here and make our cut here now. Okay, you can see we just about got all of our shape here. This piece right here is not quite rounded. Our last cut now, we're going to get that bearing and that fence lined up, so we know it's going to be our last cut right here. That bearing is going to come back right even with the fence. And this will be our final pass. Now, to get a smooth, to get a few of these chatter marks out of here, we want to turn the speed of the router up on that final little pass. So let me turn the speed up first. See, we got a full radius on this little hump right here now, and the bearing is running here. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we have all 4 pieces of our mitered raised panel door cut, our 2 stiles, and our 2 rails here. The next thing we're going to do is take these over to our table saw, and I'll show you a neat way to cut the miters. Okay, we're over to our table saw. Now, here's our 4 stiles and rails, 4 pieces to our door. What we have here is a sled, and to cut those 45s. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can cut a 45. Like on a chop saw, miter saw, very inaccurate. They have a lot of these sleds on the market that have the moving arms, you know, and you can set it to 45 exactly, but you got margin of error setting there too, you know. The best way I've ever known to cut a good 45 is with a stationary 90. This is a stationary lock 90, and you're going to get a perfect 45 every time, okay? It's great for cutting 45s. And another reason why is because we have 2 tracks on this sled that really keep it solid and stationary going through there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of our sides, we're just going to cut the right-handed side on each one of our stiles and rails. Right like this. Okay, we've got the right-handed side cut on all of our stiles and our rails. Now, we're going to cut the other side. Cutting this side was easy because we didn't have to be accurate. They're extra long. Now, the door we're making today is going to be 12 inches wide, and it's going to be 20 inches long, going this way, like this, okay? 12 by 20. Now, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about right yet, but we're going to make this one here, instead of cutting it 12 inches, we're going to cut it 12 5/8 inches long, okay? From here to here, 12 5/8, because we're going to lock these two pieces together with a tongue and groove, which you'll see later. And that tongue is going to extend out it's going to have to account for 5/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and measure 12 5/8 now on these two pieces, on the two tops and bottom rails, right here. Okay, there's my mark, 12 5/8. Okay, now what I'm going to do is bring this up, and you can see my mark exactly where it's going to go. I'm going to bring that up and line it right with my saw. So I'm cutting off right there. Once I have that, we have a little stop gauge built right into here, slides up. We'll clamp her down. Now we're going to have the top rail and the bottom rail cut exactly 12 5/8. Okay? So I'll back this up and we'll cut the top and bottom rails. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with our stiles, but we're going to make that 20 inches, remember? So we're going to cut this out 20 5/8 inches. So (20 5/8) is right there. Okay, so now our sled has to move, our stop has to move down further. It's lined up right, we want it right there. Our stop comes in right there. And we're going to cut our two stiles. Okay, you can see now we have the stiles and rails cut for our mitered raised panel door. Now, to be able to lock that together and secure it really good, we're going to go back over to our router table and we're going to cut tongues and grooves on each one of these members. All right, we're ready to cut our tongue and grooves. Now, one thing about it though, when we were cutting this molding right here with this molding bit, you can see, you know, right there is how I had it set, okay? And if you look real close here, on the bottom edge, right underneath here, this little lip right here, you can see where I cut right there on that edge with my little finger right there. See where I'm cutting that little mark? Okay, what we want to do is we want to set our groove cutter right here so that that groove cutter corresponds right underneath that little mark, right like that. Okay, so To do that, another way you can do it, if you don't want to set it that way, is use our trusty Easy Set, okay? The thickness of the wood we're using here is 13/16. And all you have to do with our Easy Set, it does 8 different bits, start at the star, and go to 13/16, okay? All we do is pick out our tongue and groove. We come right into here, and you can see we've got our Easy Set, sets our bit perfectly to the right height. And all of our sets, once one bit is set, the other one's automatically set, so we can drop the tongue cutter in there, and we're ready to go. Now, we're going to set the tongue cutter in there first because we want to cut the tongues on our mitered raised panel door first. Okay, we've got it locked in. We've got our insert ring set locked in. We're going to bring our fence over now and get our fence so we are flush. Oh, we got the wrong insert. Okay, we're going to change inserts now. And we're going to use the same insert that we used for our mitered door. It's wider. And we're going to lock it right here into our hole, our pivot pin, right there. We're locked in here. Our fence has to be flush with our bearing in the middle, right there. Lock it down. We are now ready to start cutting the tongues. Okay. Now, when we start cutting the tongues, what we're going to do is put the good side down, and we're going to cut our tongue. And when we do that, we're going to use a push block like that. And what that does, we got a right angle push block right like that. And we're going to cut our tongue right there. Okay, we've got all the right sides cut, all the left sides, excuse me, cut with our tongue. Now we're going to come over here and cut the grooves. Now, notice that I put the good side down, and everything we do, we always put the good side down. And the reason we do is because when you put that good side down and everything's referenced off that good side, you are always going to be flush. Your fronts are always going to be flush. If your pieces are off, you're going to be off in the back. And the reason we can put the good side down on all these bits is because all these pieces, because when we put this bit in here, when we designed this bit, we designed it so that this edge here where the bearing runs and this little hump right here are on the same plane. Exactly, see? What that does, that allows us now to cut the good side down, and everything is going to be perfectly flush in the front. All right, we've got the tongues cut. The next thing we're going to do now is we're going to change bits and put the groove cutter in, and we're going to cut a groove that will match that tongue. And again, you know how easy it is. All of our bit sets are like this. All you have to do, pop that tongue cutter out, put the groove cutter in, and we're ready to cut the groove. Okay? And again, all we do there is bring our fence in and get that fence flush with the bearing. Now, we're ready to turn the pieces around, still the good side down, and cut our grooves. When we do this, we're going to use a push block that's the opposite. Right like that. So we'll come in there and cut our 4 grooves. Okay. Okay, we got all of our grooves cut, and you can see when we go through here now, we're stopping a little bit shy because we don't want to burn all the way through and create a hole there. You can see I'm stopping just a little bit shy. Have a little mark set. I use my ring here on my insert ring. So stop shy on all those grooves. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to cut the groove going this way on all 4 pieces where our raised panel is going to stick in. So we're going to take these pieces again all through and cut that groove for our raised panel at the same setting. Okay, now we've got all the grooves cut for our raised panel and for our tongues to fit into. We're ready to assemble the door. And you can see right there, though, that our door isn't it's going to fit nice and flush here, but we have too much tongue here extended. So we got to eliminate some of that tongue. And right now, you can see why, if this door is going to be 20 inches long, why we made it 20 and 5/8, because we have 5/8 extending here. Even though we're using 1/2 inch engagement, since that's cut at a 45-degree angle, it creates a 5/8 inch extension there that we got to allow for. So that's why if you're making your door 20 inches, you cut it 20 and 5/8, and then when it goes together, that 5/8 of an inch will be hidden inside that tongue and groove. All right, so let's take that bit out, put our flush trim bit in it, and eliminate some of that tongue. Okay, we've got our flush trim bit set in there, and we're going to put our small insert ring here now with our spanner wrench here. Lock this, and we're locked. Now, we got to set the height of the bit. When we cut this tenon off now, what we're going to do is, this is one of the very few times that you can put the bad side down, because we're not really matching up anything, we're just eliminating something. But what we want to do is lower that bit so that the bearing is riding on this shoulder right here, and that we're cutting off some of that tenon. So very easy to switch bit, the height of the bit. We're just going to bring it down about right there, lock it in, and we're ready to cut. When I do this now, I'll do it freehand. I'll just come in here and put the palms. I don't come in here like this. If you put your palms on the table, you got more control, and we'll just kind of chisel that thing off just like that. You'll see how it works. Very easy.